All right, yeah, this is technically different from Pathfinder.
Yeah, that's right. We're not playing Dungeons & Dragons anymore after that. Anyway.
Hold.
We're alive. When last we met, you all fought and overcame the world-born dead Atropus, descending down into its heart and slaying it. A victory that will reverberate throughout the world as you all teleported back on the behest of Chipper's saved spell slot, a disintegrate unspent, to watch as the dead moon broke apart high in Herat's orbit and scatter starlit shards of shattered rock down across the sky. In that moment, you all were victorious over the greatest threat the world has faced since the gods dropped mountains on the Kithians. But that's not the end of the story. Because throughout the rest of the world still exist the lingering remains of the world-born dead's influence. The dead risen from their graves, emboldened, empowered, that still have yet to be purged. These are battles that you all fight with, that you all take part in, traveling across the continent of Veldalg, particularly across the Empire, as it is home to so many of you, to put the dead back in their graves for one final time. Sure, now, with Atropus dead, that they will not rise again. You are joined by the companions that you have brought along the way, the Rulam Sows and the Ulahar Starhammers of the world.
Women.
Whammon.
Well, Ulahar's all man.
Men.
He's a lot of dwarf.
Oh man, not a lot of it though.
Makes up for where it counts.
But at the end of the 392nd year of the Imperial calendar, life is able to return to how it was before Atropus entered the night sky. The undead menace is gone. The world is saved. And it cannot be understated how much that was your doing. A group of heroes brought together in unlikely circumstances and put to multiple tests. Victories ranging from a small tower in the outskirts of the Grunwich River Valley to a vampire's castle on the edges of the Somerset Grove, to the Arctic reaches and their strange peoples and creatures, to the distant lands of Pekrova and Emercia, teeming with ancient threats, some put down, some saved. And finally, back home, the capital city and its sister city, where two of the greatest possible threats to the peoples of Herat were excised by your will. And at the very end, the most existential threat of them all, the threat of annihilation by something so ancient and evil, there are not a lot of people who know the full story of your adventures. Certainly, there are many who know bits and pieces, people who have contributed to parts of them. but among you all there is a bond that is unshakable. A victory that cannot be taken back. The years following what becomes colloquially known as the Dead Year are years of change. Veldalg especially, as such an old land, saw a great number of peoples rise from their graves during the Dead Year, and a great number joined them. That sort of population crunch always has consequences. The foremost is that the cities of Veldalg grow exponentially, as people are drawn to them, as there's little else for populations to go as they begin to balloon and boom. And so in the age following the Dead Year, there is the early onset of industrialization on the continent. This has a number of ramifications, such as the greater proliferation of firearms, golem craft, and on a long enough timeline, even airship craft. Not even 50 years after the Dead Year, the first skyports are built in a number of Veldalg cities, most pointedly those in Imperial territories, as they have a monopoly on the trade craft, but, well, secrets like that, when they get out, they spread. And maybe a few hundred years down the line, skyships are just as common as vessels sailing the sea. But let's pull back to the years immediately following the end of the Atropal Scourge. Politically, there are a few things that happen, particularly, and most presciently, the trials of Dralzar Kravokiak, Geraldo Lean, and Xandar Grush. Professed traitors to the Empire, they claimed, or Dralazar claimed as their legal counsel, that it was their intention to unseat a ruler they saw as compromised, that they might rule for themselves and return tradition to the Empire. The prosecution against them is a layup. Those of you familiar to the happenings beforehand can spot easy discrepancies that Dralazar lays in setting out his case. Lies that he tells under the oath of Imperial law to ensure that the plan he set out makes it through. And sure enough, 3 years following the Dead Year, in the year 395 of the Imperial calendar, the three of them are executed for treason, as well as a number of smaller conspirators, and even some people in the old Imperial government who were seen as aiding Praetor Clawspeak's rise to quarry-touched power. But a week before the execution, Vracarum, a package arrives from a courier. Anonymous. Within it you find a simple, stitched up sheet of papers with a note on it that says, if anyone should have final edit rights, it should be you. Within the folds of paper, you read an opera summarizing much of the events that you would have sent in your briefings to Dralazar. And the title is simple. It's in Draconic, but it translates to The Song of the Fallen Moon. And it is unmistakably in Drowzar's writing voice. It is up to you what you do with that.
It is most definitely going to be put on, and it will become very popular throughout Solaeus, given enough time and sort of backing, as it were, down the line. It will be published with a draconic pseudonym. That is neither Drow's nor Vercaro, something else.
Rakalizar Darum.
But I think that leads us into exploring what you all have been up to in the years immediately following the Dead Year. A period of about 5 years where everything cools down. So, who wants to go first, or should we just do this in Discord order?
Can we roll for it?
You know what? Yeah, roll for it. Everyone roll a d20.
So what, roll a
whoever...
d6?
D20.
Thanks, Nora.
Actually, you know what? A D100, and whoever rolls the highest has to go first.
Let's do.
Sure. Let me just say,
Well, it's
Matt,
not me.
I was not gonna. Oh, hey, I'm so far in the lead. Oh, well, there we go.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Damn.
I had a
Do I-
whole thing about the trial.
Alright, do
That
I
wasn't
do I
gonna
roll
end
too?
in execution.
Sorry, do I roll too?
Yeah,
My
everyone
bad.
roll.
Yeah, everyone.
Everyone
Okay.
roll.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
All right.
I was kind of expecting there to be an opportunity to do something about that, but I guess I should have made a plan first.
We can retcon, but
You can rewrite history.
Good.
Sirius, how do you spend the 5 years following the destruction of Atropus?
Well, Sirius will take what time he isn't. Sirius will take what time he isn't spending trying to better the Southern Kingdom, helping out where he can, and cleaning up the dead. He will work on finding teachers to populate his the new college in the Southern Grove. That includes both the head ornamenter, Chipper, and also Candlewick. And he will also work on developing a strong relationship with the Solaeus Empire. He wants to open the Grove to make the Southern Kingdom the port to the mortal realm. And yeah,
Are the other courts on board with that?
Not really. And there is a lot of pushback that comes from that. Specifically, some of the more hostile courts in the Grove such as, let me pull up my thing.
Emer is also acting emissary of the Feywild.
The Northern Court especially does not like that.
Oh yeah, that's the
The Hive.
Elder Scoin.
yeah, the hive,
cool.
yeah.
But there are enough courts that come to your backing on that their voices are less heard. Particularly, this draws the interest of the Northeastern Court and the Eastern, or not the Eastern Court, the Southeastern Court, both of which filled with tricksters who enjoy seeing new, fresh faces that they can bewitch and prank. But in all, it is a broadly positive time. And at the very least, for the first year, Heraktes even finds some time to ponder the mysteries of the Feywild in your court, ephemeral as he is.
Sirius wants to build the Southern Court into a place where the lost can find themselves again. So, yeah, fuck rules.
Absolutely. And there are no shortage of wayward stragglers, either from the Court of Whims or from beyond, who find new homes in the Mausoleum. The rebuilding efforts are quick, and it is definitely a sight different from the Ashland Thar that was before. But we pull now away from the Feywild and instead to Rikaram. What do you do for those 5 years?
Well, so Vrak has in the year prior, sort of during that cleanup of the dead year, Vrak did something, or does something rather, to set the stage, I guess. He proclaims himself emperor. He reincorporates the March Concord into Soleus, and that's only counting the territories that used to belong to Soleus. So, the Tharsis Lakes, those don't.
Yeah, you're not
join
gonna annex all those guys we made
Right.
alliances with. That would be
Right.
bad.
That's its own thing, and that's later, and some of them want to join, some of them don't want to join. That's its own thing. He's not covering that. He's just saying everyone that split off from Soleus is Soleus again. He also then formally dissolves the station of emperor and creates a council. There's some rough and shoddy delineation as to what that has to be. There's no fewer than 9 representatives on this council. Each council member has to represent some aspect of Soleus's prosperity, and then he enacts martial law. So because there's nothing. He has to. It's necessary.
No, I understand.
History books will refer to Vrak in the future as the 10-minute emperor, who stepped up, set some things up, set some governance up, and then stopped being emperor immediately. took like a week, but it just sounds better. So with that in mind, the next 5 years are making good on that, are actually following up on setting up this government that Dralazar had dreamt of. Dralazar left some notes on. He made sure to get those. So it's helping build Soleus as a republic rather than a triumvirate turned dictatorship. He has settled into a role as the leader of the Order, the state-sponsored religion, the Order. He is essentially the Pope now. He is this version of the Pope. His title being Adjudicator. And he's on the council. Thank you. I thought it was pretty good. He's on the council. He's trying to expand the role of the Order somewhat past just religion, with the idea being that before you can even think about self-betterment, you need some of your other needs met, and that the Order should take care of the people in more than just a spiritual way, but also in a physical and mental way. So it's it's agriculture, and it's art, and it's education. That's sort of the main thing he's doing. It's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of setting up a government which he's never done before and doesn't fully understand how the fuck to do it, hitting his head against bureaucracy and responsibility in a way that he cannot just power through anymore. That's definitely the main deal. However, there's one other thing that really bears mentioning here, though. In the wake of the dead year, during the dead year, Vrax Keep, Carhoskel, continued to be a refugee camp. It was a hospital-style sort of center, at Alkilga's suggestion at first, and it continued to be, providing aid and succor to those that needed it during the Troubles, and it grew somewhat with that. A lot of people flocked there. It was safe. People were helping. They wanted the help. And there also wound up being a decent number of, just children without parents, without family, wandering around. They were able to, teleport in. And Vrac has sort of adopted a large number of war orphans. As the keep is growing, as the keep is turning into a small city all its own, there is a place for them there as well. And he raises them while balancing his many authoritative and religious responsibilities, but he serves as a parent to them to the best of his ability.
Absolutely.
So many boys.
All the boys.
And
They're multiplying.
At first, there is some chafing, and people are uncertain what to make of this new situation as the Empire becomes a republic. There's certainly social chafing, a confusion and incoherence as martial law is laid down, but as word and rumors spread, fewer and fewer people are willing to protest against the guy who destroyed the Dead Moon. And over those 5 years, it is a very transformative time for Soleil's. None of the outlying states that are forming to the east decide to remain with Soleil's, but they do maintain very close diplomatic relations. And probably for the first time in generations, there are also inroads to diplomatic relations with the countries formerly of the Lord's Alliance and beyond. Even the Allfelds, former staunch enemies of the Empire, see the necessity of peace and cohesion in the wake of this crisis, and reach out to build a better era in the aftermath. It is no small secret that both the Allfelds and the Empires know that the other possesses a mechanist-born airship, but it almost feels like that's not even a factor in most of the negotiations for trade and supply. Access to the river routes that run through much of the Imperial-held territory, now the Republic-held territory. The history books do remember this as a strong time for Soleil's. A time of unity not seen since Vandigan first rallied the slaved people. And it sets up for a good future. But we pull back into the grove now. Emer, how do you spend your 5 years?
The first few moments afterwards, after Atropus has fallen, of course, as you said, we all move around, search and destroy any zombies that are around, and put rest to the dead. Following that, she would be torn, mostly. Because that original objective, that get Cirrus and get Cirrus back. Cirrus is fine. Help Cirrus save the world from, end the Feywild from being destroyed. That's technically completed, but she doesn't really want to go back. So first, she would be helping Cirrus, the Archfey, with establishing like his court, establishing that the Southern Court was a place where people could come and be better, like change themselves, find purpose, stuff like that. Specifically, she would want to try and break the pact with the Eastern Court because it hadn't served much use. She couldn't really remember having used it, I don't think. And being tied to that Archfey where they can change the terms on a whim, well, she wants to change the term on a whim herself and have some agency in that regard. So she would be working with Cirrus to try and create a new pact. Terms uncertain, but enough that it could safeguard against and break the original one that was being held. With assuming that can be done, or it is done, she would then renounce being a princess in the Western Court. Having seen the world, having traveled around everywhere and seen places that like need help or need just some level of care, she can't just go back to like managing the other fairies for benign things. Like, the title itself was kind of just a self-made title given to her because she was the only fairy that seemed to want to do anything or even join the council as well of her court. Quietly, she would be feeling let down by the court for not helping as much during Atropus other than just commanding her to win. Whereas the friends that she's made, the connections that she's made as well, all pitched in and helped and had more of a presence than unknown people with unknown goals, with unknown allegiances. So she would respectfully and quietly bow out. That one fight that Vrak and Emer had in the Western Court, she had basically cleaned out most of her room anyway. So there wasn't much left to pick up. But she would still be honoring the arrangement set up where she would be an emissary of the Feywild, only letting people in if they weren't malicious or had ill intent or wanted to fuck with the wild in ways where it wouldn't just be like a nice cooperative endeavor or plundering or anything like that. And keeping in touch with everyone else, she would be kind of nomadic, seeing the continent that she didn't get to see, helping where she can.
Absolutely. Your travels, you are able to create a new pact that supersedes your pact with the Eastern Court, though. That's always something that will linger, the maliciousness of that court. Maybe someday we'll revisit it, but...
It does sort of fulfill the original purpose, though, with her being an emissary of the court and being... the main goal of the pact was to prevent anyone from going to the east, so easy enough. She's the emissary. You don't go to the east, otherwise you'll get a fist to the face. And a talking to.
But your travels beyond, at the very least, seeing the rest of Veldalg. It is beyond the chaos of the Court of Whims, that ever-shifting plane. You travel to the North Compass, you see the pillar around which a dragon is interred. You travel through the Ultale Mountains, their rising peaks, their mysterious nomadic giant-kin peoples. You see Greenest on the west coast, a beautiful, sparkling jewel just a hop and a skip away from the Imperial capital. You see the nomadic tribes of the Clysarian orcs on their steppes. Reclusive shamanic people who nonetheless allow you to travel with them and observe their customs without so much as a second question. You see the storm's eye of Port Atreides, even if let up for moments after the dead year. You see the vast reaches of what this world has to offer, just the faintest tip of it here in Veldalg, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. What are you going to do with yourself? But that would be a journey far longer than 5 years. But we turn to somebody else now, who might be on a journey their own. What does Claw do for the following 5 years?
Okay. Well, first things first would be help with cleanup, for sure. Help with cleanup. If Bjergton's gonna be rebuilt, be rebuilt, they would happily lend any kind of assistance in terms of guarding, keeping out for any kind of dangers while people are settling in and rebuilding. Sorry, I'm saying the same word over and over again. Reluctantly, seeing that Vrak is making a council, and seeing that a seat is empty, Claw would help reestablish the Inquisitors. He wouldn't take being the head. I think he would look for a good nominee, and eventually nominate his brother for the role of leadership. After giving him a few stern talking to, like, okay, look, I know you were always better at the book stuff than I was. Maybe you can do it far better than me. I've always been more a field worker. But Claw would always be kind of a right-hand man for any kind of anything that needs a little bit more of a push. Then once that is all settled, he would actually find a time to actually go a little whirlwind retour of a couple of the places that they stopped by through their journey, and kind of see them more with relaxed eyes rather than eyes of looking for danger around every corner. And he would take his brother. Honestly, probably one of the first places that he would take him would be the Somerset, and from there he could probably pick up Emer for a part of the journey and show off the places that he went to that Emer actually never got to see during their travels. I would say specifically heading from Tharsis and the Druidic Grove, and then heading further south into the desert and the storytellers, and they all get to tell some of their crazy stories there. Between the moon and the moons and the war and everything else.
Very importantly, you're only allowed to borrow the decanter of endless water if you promise to teleport back one of the primordial fish that Vrak never got to eat.
Yeah. No,
Land.
that's a done deal. That's a done deal. Because Claw has a bag of colding, so it'll be fresh. So we will stop and get one of those primordial fish for Vrak. That is a definite go.
Absolutely.
I think anything further than that, other than helping settle the Inquisition back down to an actual organization during those first 5 years, anything more I want to say is probably after that.
Absolutely. And you have no trouble getting your brother to take up the helm, so long as he knows you are there to assist. And he's overjoyed to tour the world, explore with two of the heroes of the Dead Year. But there is something
Catch up on
that
old times.
happens to the two of you while you're traveling.
Oh no.
The first time you find yourselves back in Imperial-held territory, a courier delivers a letter to you. To your brother specifically. It is very simple. from your father. And it reads a couple short sentences. It is time I found myself. Tell your mother that it's not her fault we divorced.
Damn.
Okay.
But Inquisitor Bane disappears from public life, and for quite some time he is not heard from again. A number of high society types consider that after besmirching his name in the service of the enthralled emperor, that he simply could not bear it and went back to Shadowmarch to see himself off. But those are just rumors.
He had a
Nonetheless.
midlife crisis and realized he couldn't quit that demon poontang.
God.
What the fuck, dude?
Really? See? I'm gonna smack you.
Fine.
That hashtag demon poontang, dude.
Candlewick has to
Yep.
make a very high roll or otherwise die
Who
during his 5
amongst
years.
us?
Who amongst us has not thought about the demon poontang?
You could have just called it like
Like,
Abyssal
you can't-
Strange or something like less visceral. But
Anyway,
that is those 5 years. Speaking of horrible people, Vic, what do you do for your 5 years?
Okay, you said 5 years, right? So that means I'm gonna have to squish together 2 different sections of my notes here, but it should be fine.
You're a Time Lord, who the fuck knows?
Yeah. After the tumult of the Dead Year, Wick turned his talents towards rebuilding the Empire's defenses and restoring its military capability, particularly with regards to the company of Rifle Knights, who had seen devastating losses both in the Civil War and the chaotic days which succeeded it. But as the events of Atropus' sundering faded into memory, supplanted by the day-to-day labor of the ongoing recovery efforts, a creeping dread began to trouble his mind, a growing insistence that he had missed a step or forgotten something important in the all-consuming rush of their existential struggle. And one cold winter eve, he snapped awake from his nightly reverie with a startled realization. Hastily boarding Lathiar, he made for Serowin, due south, towards the vacant manor turned mausoleum, wherein the unburnt remains of those who felt Atropus' foul touch were sent to be sanctified, that at least their souls might find peace. Wick is, he's going to see the bird.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll like, approach the big fucking cathedral door and, knock on it. She's probably up.
She is in fact up, and she opens the door, startled to see you, but welcomes you in nonetheless.
I'm sorry to darken your doorstep like this, but I need to speak to a mutual acquaintance of ours. Once again, it's somewhat urgent.
All right, I will do what I can.
It's Thorn. I thought that would be obvious. I'm sorry.
And she skitters away and retrieves the severed machine head.
Oh, I thought he said he destroyed that.
What do you need me to do? This is just a facsimile.
Oh, yes, right. No, do whatever you need to do. I need to compose myself. I'm in quite a state right now.
Do you need to commune directly with the soul?
Yes. Is that within your capabilities?
Of course. And
Thank you.
I'm giving you about an hour to kind of compose yourself. Kor assembles this complex ritual that, as she casts out the incantation, kind of positioning herself in the center of this sigil that she's created, holding the facsimile of Thorn's head. The spirit seems to kind of lift her off the ground for a second before... It is strange seeing a little bird woman the size of Kor take on some of the mannerisms and posture of Thorn, but the shoulders straighten out, kind of heave a little bit before turning around, and a series of kind of glyphs glowing around the edge demarcate the limits of where this soul can be. You look different. You do something with your hair?
Wick just like squints and he's like, what? I've been rather busy since we parted ways, but I don't quite have time to catch up now. I always felt there was something odd about your involvement in this affair, but I never had the opportunity to really think about it until recently. You see, what I truly don't understand is why you got involved with Strayedkrantz at all. I'm sure I helped you reach your sleeping army in the tundra, but you would have made it there one way or another. I did. It's not as if we have to fear the cold. In fact, given your rather strident attitudes towards independence and personal empowerment, it seems incongruous that you would have sided with a would-be mastermind inclined to treat you as a momentary pawn, which, with the benefit of hindsight, we both know he did.
That he did.
The foremost question one must pose in matters such as these is, who benefits? To be sure, the two of you profited from your alliance, though not entirely mutually, and I'm not certain I ought to credit you with an overabundance of decision-making prowess. Nonetheless, I am reminded. A little bird, no offense, once told me that the overlord of House Oriens, the orchestrator of that whole calamity we're so familiar with, was a lich dragon. Now, I've been informed by the parties concerned that that matter is long since settled to a point of finality. But while I've never had the displeasure of facing a lich myself, I have it on fairly good authority from educated souls that they're especially difficult to put down in perpetuity. So I'll ask you again, who would benefit, Strayed himself aside, from bringing the most potent source of necromancy in the planescape to our little world? Who could benefit from seeing it pitted against the most advanced army on the continent, embedded within that a militarized sect capable of harnessing quantities of positive energy rivaling or exceeding a divinity? And the dread moon shattered as a result, its fragments raining across the surface of Dalg for just anybody to find, perhaps use. Just why did you attack Seleus Isildur Thorn? Surely it wasn't to honor your deal with Strayed. He was flagrantly using you as bait and had already severed ties. For revenge? Against whom? You could have flown west with your airships and taken the whole of Amarcia for yourself. I've seen their defenses. You're a bloodthirsty bastard, but you were born a soldier. And soldiers follow orders.
When I died, there were a great many things I learned about who I was. There is a lot of parceling out of who people like you and I are, were. I was 3 times. In one life, I was a soldier. In another life, I was a proud dragon, sailing across the stars on wings of meteor clouds. But my vessel was damaged at some point. And who I was third was just a common killer. prized up in Orion's early society for, well, you know what for.
Right.
I suppose that if perchance the Orion's phylactery still existed somehow, there's a real annoying druid up in the north of Amercia who took great personal interest in seeing to that they were gone. If they were to reassemble some of these fragments of Atropus, it would certainly be advantageous for bringing even a shattered lich back to full power. But at the end of the day, I was just trying to reconcile who I was. I was a
We should all
soldier,
be so lucky.
proud. And I wanted to see pure force pitted against pure force. I was a dragon, wrathful at my imprisonment, lashing out against my freed kin. And I was a criminal. I wanted to hurt people.
Would you like to know what I really think?
What's that?
I think you were in Veldalg, looking for some tourmaline of your own.
Maybe I was. But if I was, I never found it.
Right. It'll be a ways longer before we can meet in person again, since it seems I still have some work to do. Don't concern yourself. You'll have all the time in the world to wait. Wick, gives a nod to Cor to cut the connection.
And the spell ends, and she kind of slumps back over, and you see her feathers ruffle up and puff out. She just like she's been in a dryer, and she's just floofed out. That was unpleasant.
Yes, it seems so. Here, something to lift your spirits. Wick rustles around in his cloak and pulls out just an absolutely, just fabulously ornate, bejeweled necklace and hands it to her. It's, encrusted.
This is a good payment for now.
Yes. Oh, and before I forget, he also gives her a very nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, after that evening, Candlewick requested, and with little in the way of competition was summarily granted, an ambassadorship to the Duke's fledgling state of New Waylandshard. Of course, he would not forget his ties, for on the eve of his intercontinental voyage, each of you receive a letter!
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
What does the letter
yo.
say?
Yo!
You got postcards? Holy shit!
Oh
Yup.
boy.
Huh?
Oh, I'm gonna.
Uh-oh.
And there. Okay, that's everyone.
Oh shit!
Yep.
Mine says Toma. Oh, forgive me, it's to Emir.
Yes. Yeah, that's the file name. Don't worry about it.
No, you're fine. I knew that.
Anyway, Wick went on to serve his post with distinction, having been equipped with a curious but comprehensive understanding of diplomacy by the group's innumerable wheelings and dealings. He proved to be an undaunting political ally to the Duke's government, successfully lobbying the renewed Soleus Empire for material support in exchange for access to Emercia's reclaimed technologies many a time. He also acted as a watchdog for fair treatment of awakened Warforged on the rare occasion they appeared, and if necessary oversaw their asylum as citizens of Soleus, in a model of rehabilitation he based heavily on Brazier's experiences. Whenever he returned to Veldalg on business, he would unerringly visit most, if not all, of the members of the party. Stalwart and taciturn as always, but with a telltale hint of warmth you could not be certain had always been present. Of course, Requiring very little in the way of rest, that left his evenings largely open to the pursuit of his other vocation, that of timekeeper. With the carte blanche afforded by his, I'm sorry, I have to do this, diplomatic immunity, he was freely able to climb the highest highs of New Wayland Shard society, and by his practical experience, delve its lowest lows. Though his tenure saw no shortage of this nightly troubleshooting, the eyes of history are blind as to whether or not he ever truly found what he was looking for. Perhaps it's merely as the saying goes, if you do your job well enough, people won't know you did anything at all.
Absolutely. And so, those years continue on, busy as ever, but as you do make to leave, you do deprive Lamalios of a fledgling golem crafter who took a pretty abrupt talent to artifice, as Bruiser, seeing the intent of your travels, refuses to be left behind.
Oh, absolutely.
There is a wide world, and he is no longer bound by the fog of violence that hung over him the last time he had a chance to see it proper. And if anything else, he wants to see the land that he once called home, even if he does not remember it.
100%. Absolutely.
But speaking of travelers, we turn now to the lowest rolling motherfucker in here, Chipper. How do you spend your 5 years?
As always.
Oh, she hit the deck save button by mistake. My bad. I misunderstood.
Chipper,
Nikki?
did you mute yourself?
Doesn't say she's muted.
Another
Doesn't.
deck save that has been
In
failed.
the bathroom.
Probably.
Oi, Nick! Sorry, I tried.
Your accent fucking gave me tinnitus.
I'm sorry.
Nikki Nori.
Chipper?
Well, Chipper's dead.
Chipper
Well.
spends the 5 years in a K-hole.
In the bathroom.
What most people don't know about gnomes is that they love ketamine.
Oh yeah, Chip, you gotta try this ketamine stuff. It really gets you going.
He's chewing on
while
that
we're-
wizard weed.
While we're waiting for her to come back, I cut a few corners in doing mine, word for time and all. But then D just did a novella, so I figure.
I thought we were gonna do this in threes, because Matt said 3 parts. I didn't know we were gonna do 2 of them at once.
I also did the exact same thing, my dude, where I took half of what I said from what they do in the first year and half of what I said and what they do in the 4 years.
Fuck it, we're waiting for Nikki, so bring it back.
So, part of it is that reconstruction does begin on Bjergton once more. A fucking sign outside City Hall, outside city limits saying, like, this 3rd time's the charm or something. Like, this time it'll stick. City Hall is directly across from what is being dubbed the Star Killer Cannon, which is, still standing proud and aimed towards the heavens. To make sure that is not fired without just cause or, without, consideration being paid. Vrak, with Wick's help, has a piece of the cannon removed, the firing pin, and split into several pieces. Given
Didn't Matt
to...
say the barrel was basically destroyed?
Also, I'm back. So sorry about that. I had to
No
My
worries.
mom had to grab me to say Happy Chinese New Year to my grandma.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, you gotta.
That's sweet.
Was the barrel basically destroyed?
Yeah, I distinctly remember him
pretty
saying
warped.
I'm asking Matt.
It was pretty warped,
Okay.
yeah. It could be
All right. In
fixed,
that
but
case,
it's up to you.
in that case, it just stands as a general monument, and we don't need to divvy anything up. But yes, Bjergton does begin reconstruction in those 5 years. Slow but steady. Nikki, you're up.
Okay.
What does Chipper do for the 5 years after the dead year?
Well, the first thing that she's going to do is it is about high time that Chipper is due to do what all onomancers are meant to do once in a while, especially once they become too connected to their own name, which she has become, and so many people have become very attached to that name, so it's time to let it go. She's going to give up Chipper as her name. And the one that she's going to go with is Glee, which is a synonym and something that she still very much embodies of herself. And it's also time for her first official apprentice to do the first thing that all onomancers must do, which is give up their name and take a new one. And because it's her first onomancer name, if you'd be okay with that, Matt, to take away that character's rights to do that, Chipper would like to name her.
Absolutely.
And she's gonna name her Benny, Bene, as in like benefic.
Yeah.
Or benefit, or all of those things. And then comes the arduous process of rebuilding the, higher magical education in these lands. And we did unfortunately kill quite a few of the headmasters, didn't we?
At the very least,
killed,
2 of them are out of commission.
Yeah. So with the new 10-minute emperor, I think Chipper and Brack would, pick those who have survived from those schools, which I don't think were many. Actually, no, we didn't kill the majority of them, did we? We actually tried very hard to keep them.
For exactly
The majority
this
of them.
reason, 'cause
Yes.
The future existed.
Indeed. So, due to our incredible foresight, the selection process begins, and after that, Chipper would like to enact some magic reforms, by then probably, after sorting everything out, Brack's probably already stepped down, and the council would have been put into place to discuss, exchange programs because we have promised the exchange of, our magic and our knowledge with a lot of our allies, as well as the reverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Chipper will spend the first few years being kind of a traveling lecturer and fulfilling promises, but also using it as a kind of excuse to just hoover up even more, studies, and she's written at least 3 more books in that time that nobody's read. But she does now make Benny read all of them. And it's awful, and she hates it. But she has to, because those are the rules. And then after her return, she would like to discuss the dissolution of the outlaw of certain magics in Soleil's. Brack. Pretty please?
Yeah.
I want delayed fast disintegrate.
I mean, are you talking about necromancy?
I am talking about necromancy. Magic in and of itself should not be... There is no inherently good or evil magic, only good and evil wizards and sorcerers. And I think to separate, us and cut us off from an entire field of learning because of the fear of, bad actors, is not necessarily fair.
It's
I'm not saying
only a question of morality, Glee. It pervades the natural order. It runs afoul of the very air we breathe.
does not mean that we should not study it. We study medicine as much as we study poisons. I'm not saying that it should be entirely laissez-faire, that whoever little, bookshop sorcerer off the street gets to learn necromancy. I'm saying that to separate us entirely from an entire school of magic seems counterproductive to a growing and slowly, enlightening empire. Not even slowly, I would add. In these past few years, there's airships flying outside now.
Yes, but the airships are not fueled by all that is impure and stands against good. The airships do not taint the air or soil the waters in their wake.
I mean, our great industries do, but they provide just as much good as they, arguably far more good than they do evil. I'm not saying that it is something that should be, like I said, laissez-faire, but I think the study of necromancy should be documented, and I think those who wish to practice it should be registered within the college as such, and as are you adjudicator that you are, you can take visits to their laboratories, you can make stationed trips, and you can even have a limit on how many.
For a wizard of all people to obscure what can be seen.
Sperbricarum, do you have so little faith in your own abilities? We have brought the moon down. I seriously doubt that a simple illusory spell would get the best of you at this point.
Wick was the eyes, not me.
Well, then make Wick go have a look.
I cannot make Wick do anything.
Yes, but I'm sure if you asked.
Glee, what you're asking is very difficult.
I understand.
It spits in the face of one of Soleus has few traditions left, linking it to the past. We have already ceased to be an empire, at least in name. And we have already loosened our morals when it comes to those that worship at the altars of others. Now, after Atropus's wrath has beleaguered this continent, you ask me to let the people know that it will be okay for people to learn necromancy, for it to be okay to learn to raise the dead as they once did roam.
What I'm
We
asking...
Are still fresh. We are still fresh from the wounds of Atropus.
What I'm asking is that if traditions are important, don't get me wrong, but if traditions are the hindrance to progress, I'm not saying that they should be abandoned. I think we should keep the best of our traditions. My argument is that our fear, because that is what it is fear of necromancy, and even perhaps in future other magics that seem, borrowing your term, evil, it hinders us into the future, and that when threats like this arise again, if we do not have knowledge of it, if we do not have understanding of it, I think we would be much in a similar position as we were with Atropus.
I cannot possibly understand you. First you butter me up saying that I could not possibly be deceived by wizard's illusions, and then you have the audacity to say that I am afraid of anything.
Well, it does sound that you are a little bit afraid of necromancy, Brack. It does sound like that.
If anything, I am afraid of the distinct pleasure I would derive from felling a necromancer and their hordes. No, I do not fear necromancy. I detest it and what it stands for.
What does it stand for
But
to you?
what it stands for is the perversion of life. It stands for, it represents, it means that life is not the end, where life does not end with death. It robs life of its meaning then. It makes toys of the corpses and bones of our ancestors. You are an old and dear friend. I will speak with the council and see what I can do.
That's all I can
But
ask for.
It will not be much at first.
Even if it's just at first, letting a select few, read the literature that we have sealed and locked away, that would be a start. And she's gonna do the uppy hands like, ah?
You do raise a valid point that to study necromancy may be to find weaknesses and defenses worth exploiting, and that knowledge of the undead may be useful in combating the undead.
How wise
There's
you are.
promise in that.
A very wise and just decision, adjudicator.
You cannot resume to butter me. The buttering has ceased. We'll also have it. We'll see what the Archfey thinks of this. The museum may have room for another lecturer. Another class, another degree in the syllabi.
Indeed.
We'll see.
I want you to know, and she's gonna take his hand, I'm not expecting this to happen overnight. But I just want you to know that for as long as, you sit your butt on the council and I'm the head onomancer, I'm going to keep bringing this up. And just a gentle reminder over time. A gentle annoyance over time.
I really ought to force the heads of house to sit on the council as well.
The heads of which houses? As in, you want...
You and the other.
Oh, you mean the headmasters.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Weekly meetings. All four of you in the same room with the rest of us. Going over policy.
That sounds awful.
Annoy me further, there will be 4 new seats waiting for the lot of you.
I'll be going to bye. And she's gonna run out the door. And that's gonna be Chipper for the next 20 years. Is every annually around the same time every year she comes in to discuss alleviating certain policies on necromancy. Just little ones at first, it starts with like, oh, just let us read the books. And then after that, like, oh, these few defensive necromancy spells. Maybe those, Oh, how about we start small, like, tutoring class? How about a book club for necromancy?
Perhaps like a pro tip.
Yes.
You're a gnome. You're gonna live for like 200 years. Maybe you should like wait a generation until so many people who saw like the Hiroshima of necromancy happen are no longer around.
Does that seem like
do this?
Do you think that's in Chipper's character? Because I don't.
Absolutely not.
No, but
exactly.
No.
But
I'm just saying.
Every year, you raise so many good points. You're so smart. I think that what Vrack can kind of try to get going with Nikki, with Chipper, is a sect of inquisitors that deal in undeath. And I think that's about as good as it's gonna get.
It's okay. I've got 200 years to grind at this wheel, and I'm telling you, after Vrack is gone, she's still grinding on this wheel. Like the next head of the council getting ground on the same way.
Vrack only gonna live like maybe 10 more years.
No, he's got
not 10.
a while.
He's got like 30.
Dragonborn sort of tap out around 70.
Okay.
And Vrack's like 35, going on 40 this time skip.
Okay, I'm the mayfly in the fucking room. Okay.
Well,
You're what? No, you
No,
live forever.
You live forever.
No. Warforged basically have a hard limit on their lifespan.
well, either way, pulling us back on. The council is abrasive about your proposals, Chipper, but after a couple rounds of discussion, many of them, still fresh off the horrors of the dead year, do see some value in studying necromancy to better counteract it. You feel something at your very core that your foot is in a door.
I'm gonna kick at it.
But there's one person whose journeys are not rolled for. That of the Glass Dragon Heraktes, who was there with you when the moon was destroyed. And for the 3 years following the reclamation after the dead year, Heraktes spends his time traveling Herat. At first, it is just spending several months with each of you to see just how much things have changed in his isolation. He spends time giving lectures about some of the raw points of planar magic in the Mausoleum, though without the greatest speaking skills. It goes over most of the students there's heads. Parts of it even go over Chipper's head. He spends time traveling the Clysarian steppes with Claw and Emer. He spends time visiting Amercia with Wick. He spends time helping to rebuild Bjergton. He even spends time traveling to the other places you all have been. He travels to the mainland in Pekrova to explore ruins with Rulam So. He travels to the Arctic to see the scars on the world up there. But after a while, he disappears. Presumably gone off to some incredibly far reach of the world beyond to get a proper look at what all has changed, to see what's out there. But 5 years later, each of you receive seemingly out of nowhere, a small whisper glass ring and a scratched out note written on a little stock card. Would you like to come to a party? Put the ring on.
Oh boy.
Hell yeah.
And as each of you do, you find yourselves teleported once again to the surface of the moon. And that's where we're going to take our break.
Damn. Ooh.
So we will be back shortly to see what's next.
Oh wait, did I misunderstand this? I found the entry for age in the Warforged race description. It says Warforged don't deteriorate due to age. It just says that they're typically between 2 and 30 years old. I thought they lived to about.
No.
Oh no.
Thir-
Yeah,
oh
in
shit.
for the long.
Okay.
You're
fuck.
immortal. You're
Yeah,
double
get fucked.
immortal.
I wrote a whole thing where Wick was going to die at like 40. God damn it.
No, what you're gonna do is you're gonna be the only one around. No, actually, no. Probably Cirrus will be around, and probably Emer.
Yeah.
But the only ones around to see the Great Lichening.
Oh god damn it.
Fae have lifespans.
I always retconned it as like
Archfays don't, though, right?
Archfays do not. Sirius is going to be here forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Unless-
Monk not age though?
Monk doesn't age.
not
they still die
affected
of
by old age. Yeah. Which, if Sirius wants me, then we can, I don't know, figure something out.
Yeah.
I mostly had it as, like, if we're in the campaign, if I was to, like, age out of it or anything like that, then it would just be that, like, she has a certain amount of years of being, like, zoned in and doing things, and then after a while, it's just, like, she just clocks out and fucks off.
She just meditates under a tree until she becomes part of the tree.
Do you know the have you seen the meme from Kung Fu Panda where the turtle like fucking dies, but it's like to the sound specifically of a turtle, like an actual turtle having sex.
Yes, I
No.
have seen that.
I have not seen that, but I don't know what it's about it.
Do,
Yeah, it's
do we
fine.
need the vocal recreation of that?
We super
Yes.
don't.
Yes.
We super do.
Thankful I don't
I've
record.
seen that video so many times.
Oh
Thankful
god,
I
I
don't
love it
record
so
voices.
much.
Anyway, we're back. And you all have appeared on the moon. Particularly within Heraktes' mausoleum. Though the decor is much different. It has been cleaned up. Fresh tapestries have been created. Tables set up with banquets and of just feast. And you are not the only ones here. You see a number of the people you've interacted with on your journey. You see Rulam So. You see Ulahar. You see Kor, Vesh. All gathered. And you see Heraktes in goblin form, kind of posted up in the room there, hands clasped. Welcome, my friends. It's good to see you all again after so long. I take it you've all been well?
Yeah. Yes, I must confess, it's somewhat disconcerting to see this space so festive.
Well, I've had some time to clean it up, and I figured it was due time to stop lingering on what was.
That's good. I'm happy for you.
But I figured we never had a real proper celebration at the end of the dead year. We were owed that much. Please, help yourselves.
Sure. Cause not good with parties, obviously. But the food's
okay.
good, so
You can come and snuggle with Chipper.
The
You'll
food
all be
is
proud.
pretty diverse. There's some Crovan cuisine. There's cuisine from all over Veldalg. A broad number of spirits and kegs, decanters, jars. There's a whole ass party.
You'll all be very proud. I've learned to listen to people first before interrupting them. That was what I just showed then by keeping very still. But now it looks like Heraktes has stopped talking, so she just gives her a peck on the cheek.
Aw.
And then roll Emso with tongue.
Fuck.
To be clear, on the cheek with tongue.
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
Shouldn't you be in school or something?
Your friends show some signs of the time that has passed. Presumably you've all grown some, changed some aesthetics. Ulahar is noticeably starting to go gray. Which, for a dwarf, doesn't mean a lot. They're pretty long-lived. Brulamso has maintained a very youthful affect. It's hard to tell exactly how old she is at any point in time.
She's the perfect. The fine wine.
Vesh just strides straight up and, like, forearm handshake with Vrak.
Of course.
It's been a while.
Yes. How have you been keeping?
Alright. Can't complain. Then, I'm a captain, a proper captain, and, doing a lot of sailing to other lands and the like. Not just between, the Arctic and all that.
Well, you'll have to regale us.
Of course. Actually, I was gonna send it out, getting married next year.
Aww.
To Teresa, I presume.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate it if you'd all be there. Don't know a couple of you quite so well, but
It's still a pleasure to meet you. We would be more than happy to give blessings.
What?
all right.
Right?
Classic Vesh.
People supposed to go to weddings.
Yes.
Well, she
Yes,
she,
Sir Vicarum, very good.
she wanted a ceremony, so we're having a ceremony.
I see.
You know what they say. Happy wife, happy life.
That's what they say.
I have erred.
What do you mean?
I beg your pardon?
I did not invite any of you. I did not know it was a social occasion.
Oh.
What?
Wait, Vrak, are you married?
Yes.
Your
Oh.
spouse did not inform you otherwise?
Vicarum.
No, I we did not speak much on what marriage entails. It was explained to me much like the draconic custom of bonding to another, except for a more permanent occasion and with the swapping of rings. There's a ceremony?
Traditionally,
Often, yes.
Traditionally.
Depends on the
So
culture, I
spill the
suppose.
beer. Who is it?
Okilga.
Ah, of course.
Oh,
I did assume as much. Did she not inform you that there was...
No, I more or less put the ring on her and declared us wed, and that was that. She did not seem to mind terribly. Not that I could sense.
Whose, she sweats nervously. Whose name was taken?
Pardon?
That's a Fey pun!
I don't.
Good one.
You cannot.
I forgot.
Not
It's been a
right
while
now.
since you've heard it. Yeah. No, I should have paced myself. You're right.
I need to plan a party.
Oh,
Not everyone wishes it to be such a public occasion. Perhaps you wish to keep it amongst yourselves.
as soon as Wick starts saying that, Cirrus will cover his mouth with all four of his hands. He has made a puppet that looks essentially just like him, except like a little shorter. And he says, The museum would be happy to host your party. In fact, if you want, I could organize it for you.
Is that customary?
Is anything
Is
with
that
this group?
part of ritual?
could be.
Sometimes the planning process is stressful for some folk, so they get other folk to do it for them.
I see.
I have some Fey friends that I can wrangle into helping as well, in a nice way, a very serious helping way. But I can, yes, wrangle them. And she cracks several knuckles.
I will consult this with her.
Wonderful. Perhaps you could come visit with her and see the premises. This would be our first wedding. Well, not our first, but our first time being a wedding venue.
It may be a option for you going forward. How is the Moonlit Museum coming along?
Oh, very well. Our collaboration with the Republic has greatly helped in rebuilding everything. And the new semester is starting soon. How has
Is that important?
the new semester?
Yes.
Well, of course. I mean, education is very important in the museum.
Yes.
How have you been taking to your new role in the Republic for Karam?
Well, it is a good deal of paperwork, more than anticipated. But I still serve gladly.
If you ever need
I
any
never
time
really
to break
do.
some stuff to blow off steam, let me know.
Blowing off steam is not the issue. It is things need to be done in particular manners with particular inks, or else they are not sufficient. There's no. When I am told I cannot do something, I am not able to chop that thing in half any longer as a means of correction. It is requires new efforts, new weapons, in a way.
Well, you never chop me in half, so you're fine. You'll make it.
Yes, but you never told me I could not do something.
I feel like I did when we entered the Feywild for the first time.
Oh, yes. That's so
And you did it anyway.
now. Indeed. Thus you remain in one piece.
Well, if you're ever in need of a vacation, you're always welcome in Tarsus, Rikaram.
There is no time for vacations, though.
There's always time for vacations.
There's always time for vacations.
There's always time for vacations. Sears is giving
Broken simulacrum.
Sears is giving Vosh like a little bit of a fucking dirty look. Like he wants to monopolize like he wants everybody to come to the Southern Kingdom to vacation because he's a greedy little guy and he wants his friends to come visit all the time.
Ulhar kind of returns the dirty look, like, there's a vacation and there's a vacation.
Oh shit. He's gonna take that?
I'm sure they're both good.
You ain't seen a vacation since, man. Trails off.
I'm sure they both have their merits.
One of them charms you and one of them gets you charmed.
One of them
Wanders off and grabs like a whole fucking hawk of like a turkey or something.
Sirius Sirius wants to magic it a little bit so it tastes like just way too salty.
Salt!
Oh dear.
It's nothing for a Starhammer dwarf. And he just fucking chows into it anyway.
Well, yeah.
Speaking of vacations, as Rulamso kind of edges up. Little fairy, I have a proposition for you.
She's already in the position of, you know, when like you're at a table and just your elbows down and your palm is like cradling your face and just like one other arm just on her hips, like, yes, your lemon cell, please tell me. Absolutely, your wish is my demand.
Good, then you are coming back to Pokrova with me. I'm doing deeper research and I could use a bodyguard.
Oh. It's finally time. She's gonna nut.
Just to warn you, we will be going to the depths of a volcano. Exploring lost civilizations.
Careful, you're gonna make her explode.
Could you excuse me for 2 seconds?
I could.
You seem quite overheated as is.
2 seconds, I promise. I'll be right back. Yes.
Good. I will expect you. The same place we met the first time. I will leave another pillar.
I'm basically already there.
I'd hope not. You'd miss the party. And she gives you a little smug grin before wandering off herself.
You guys know that one clip from like Kitchen Nightmares or something? Not Kitchen Nightmares. That one, like Hell's Kitchen, where the girl is like, Gordon Ramsay is like talking like at the end of the competition or something, and hold on, I'll just find it. 2 seconds, 2 seconds.
You're not talking
I have
about
it.
idiot sandwich, are you?
No. You don't even know. You don't even know.
I don't.
Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes. That fits.
Just Heraktes.
But you guys are able to continue enjoying the feast laid out before you. The food is all pretty good, pretty considerable. Things are definitely much more lively, much cleaner, but as the meal winds down, Heraktes kind of shifts to the front, taking his draconic form again. It has been a very long time since my self-imposed exile. For a very long time, I had simply expected the worst of the world. Believed that there was no more place. I set my people off to the reaches of the stars in hopes to find a world where we could start again. But I have not heard back from any of them since they left. And perhaps it is simply the limitations of planar travel, but at that time I sank very low. It was not until we brought the fight to Atropus that I began to reconsider. It was not until after the dead year, traveling this world, that I began to see the beauty that I had shut myself onto for the simple sake of avoiding my own misgivings and failings. But I'm grateful that I was able to meet you all, to see everything that this world had to, every fruit this world had grown, every reaching limb of her many trees and branches. But it has also given me time to realize something. My people are gone from this world, and while a kinship I have built with all of you, there's still more that I have to see. I gathered you all, my friends here, to celebrate our victory. But also to say goodbye. I'm going to journey across the Sea of Stars and visit the many worlds that I sent my people to. From here, I don't know what happens, but I will return with souvenirs, with word of what I find of my kin, their descendants. So I'd like to give this place to you. This moon was once my solace, my solitude. But I want it to be yours. It's a place that we all share. Thank you, my friends.
When are you leaving?
Probably tomorrow. The preparations are well complete.
She stood up as she had said that, but she's just slowly lowering back to her chair. Stunned.
I wish you safe travels.
Yeah. Good luck finding him out there.
Were it not for your initial venture to claim the wayward keys that allowed you to teleport from Cotton Kala to here, I don't think I would have reached this decision. I would have chosen to remain here forever. But it's time to move on.
Perfect.
I am certain that what you seek is out there somewhere. And I wish you all necessary luck in finding it. For what little it may be worth, I am proud of you, Heraktes, for taking this step. The first of many.
If you happen to find descendants of my people, perhaps you could send a message back home that we'll hear.
Of course.
I would ask the same. If any remnants of mechanists persist out there, do let them know that there is a place for us yet.
Of course.
Let us all go on.
Sorry. Emer flutters up slowly, and she's dressed in like a nice, pretty dress for this occasion, but she does have like a knapsack with her with things inside. Opens it up. Just some rattling around for a little bit as she's like standing at basically Heraktes' feet. You hear, there's like an audible crunch sound, and she plucks something and presents it to Heraktes and says, "This is a scale from a dragon I am very well acquainted with, and you will always be remembered. So please take this as keepsake."
Of course. And I will always remember you all. As both Heraktes, the Glass Dragon, hidden away in the moon, and as Lyorus, the Akjar of the House of Crowns. Thank you.
Let us all raise a glass to past victories and to future conquests.
Here, here.
Here, here.
Here, here.
Here, here.
Wick hurriedly looks around and like grabs a glass that is unattended. It's mostly empty. There's a little bit of wine in it.
He raises a bowl. It's the nearest thing.
Just holding up a salad bowl.
Yeah.
You will travel safely.
Of course. We will always be connected when we look up at that sea of stars. With good enough eyes, we might be able to see each other again from so far away.
Sirius, please cancel all of your future appointments and book in the crying room for the two of us.
It's already done.
Best archfey ever.
I thought his entire court was the crying room.
It's excessive to have a room dedicated to a single emotion.
You have rooms dedicated to training, which could be used to vent frustrations.
No, Vikaram, that's unfair. Perhaps they also cry with joy in the crying room.
It's a
Is such thing
multi-purpose
possible?
room. Yes. Like right now.
Are we going right out?
This is hardly the room for such a thing.
Yes, let us make merry.
I think there's been enough crying in this room for a lifetime.
It was
Hey.
Ooh,
quite a bit of work.
scathing.
Hey.
What? No, I just mean that he's brightened the place
No,
up
that was
so
out of
much.
character.
Oh,
So I said D.
It was quite a bit of work repurposing many of the servitors to cook. Let us enjoy the feast they have prepared. And so, you guys are able to enjoy the rest of the feast, catch up with old friends who have been either traveling or moving in different circles for the past few years.
dead?
Sorry, Dan.
You all learn of the various goings-on. Ulamso talks about some conflicts and abrasions on Pekrova between the Three Isles, the various new types of undead that seem to come out of the volcano that spurred on her latest round of research. Ulahar brags about how the Druid Grove seemed to spawn a number of different monstrous skeletons that he was able to beat back with his hammer. Kor talks about how she has managed to rehabilitate the entirety of the Vampire Baron's land into a more functional settlement, and that life and prosperity have begun to return to the outlying counties. Vesh talks about how much he loves being on a boat.
pretty cool.
But for probably the first time in a very long time, you are all reunited in the same room. And you really feel that sense of victory as the night carries on, and it carries on. Eventually, the festivities begin to kind of twinkle out, and people begin returning to their assorted homes. Heraktes, still in his dragon form, seeing everyone off. The glassy face of it, betraying few emotions, but the warmth that comes off of him is different to prior interactions. As he's found purpose. He's found joy in a world that could be so cold. It's difficult not to feel a part of that. The following night, from the material plane at least, those of you on it can see what seems like a shooting star passing off the moon. That is undoubtedly Heraktes traveling out to find what remains of his people and their legacy. So let's pivot into the rest of your lives. Should we roll for this one too?
Before
Sure.
that,
Before that.
can we circle back to the trial?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Probably address that.
Which we really should have come up with a plan for this.
Oh, I had a plan.
No,
Oh, okay.
I had a plan this
There is a
entire
plan.
time.
My
And
plan
my
was
dad
to help
said
out
that
my plan was to help out if needed.
1 second.
No, but so the trial goes on, and Vrak is the judge. That was the whole plan. Maybe it's a tribunal
right.
with two other people or so. I think Law and Chipper really are the other ones, but there's a prosecution and a defense, and during that, evidence of Clawspeak's treachery and the quarry threat and how real that was is laid out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Drow had always told him what the final verdict has to be. But after, all this, I mean, how long does this trial even take? More than a couple days, probably like 2 weeks at least.
Oh,
It's a major
months.
thing. Months, easy. At the end of it, Vrak gives a verdict. A verdict that has been discussed with Chipper and Claw, several of them. For your many crimes aught against the Salasian Empire, your homeland. Punishment must be meted out. We find all three of you guilty of treason of the highest order. However, in light of what fickle good you have pulled from your treachery, Suleus does now stand taller than ever before. And in light of those bitter few thanks, the three of you are sentenced to exile. Soleus will never more be a home to you. You will never sup upon the fruits of your treacherous labor. Not once more will you stand foot on Solasian soil. And I do believe we have the onomancy necessary to make that most binding indeed. And for the rest of your days you will be hounded. Hounded by those who think this too light a punishment. You will have no reprieve. And if possible, you know, have Chipper work some onomancy that makes it, you know, impossible for them to return to Soleus, to what is considered Soleus, and then send each of them off to a different part of the world. I had thought, and each of them, Vrax gives each of them a gift, but Gerald, and Casterman, of course, to Pekrova, sent off to Pekrova. Gerald gets the Ring of Protection to help keep the old man safe. Xandark Rush to the far Rigid Norths, and along with it he gets the Dead Man's Plate, because he's a dead man walking and he could always use that extra oomph out there. And if Emer has it, that Ring of Warmth would probably do him well too.
100%.
And Drow gets the Sentinel Shield and gets sent off to Emercia, because no one else is going to watch his back for him, so that shield will have to do. And in doing so, you know, make sure Drow still has that Sending Stone and can you know, message back to Vrak and kind of reverse the positions, where now Vrak is stuffed up in some office doing paperwork and handling bureaucracy, and Drow is off, you know,
Having an adventure.
And telling him about it every day at sunset. That's the goodest end I could cook up for these three terrible boys that did such a naughty thing.
Yeah, such naughty things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They do live their lives out in exile.
Oh, and one last little thing, because Vrak's a petty bitch. Vrak also gives Dralazar an empty journal.
Absolutely. But let's shift and let's look at the long picture. So, let's get another group of D100 rolls.
Oh boy.
Except for Cirrus.
Oh man.
You're going
Well,
last.
okay.
You're going last no matter what.
Okay, but 69.
Shit!
Yeah, that's nice.
I didn't want to roll high.
I rolled 25.
Get fucked.
I rolled a 5 on a D100, which is really fucking bad.
You
Good in
just
this
can't.
circumstance.
I just can't roll. Like, that's what I've learned in my entire D&D journey, is that I roll like poo-poo all the time. It is
the
constant
whole ending I
poo-poo.
came up with was bullshit. Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh, Nikki, the problem is you gotta use the don't use the dex save for your roll. You just roll D100.
That's what I did.
She's joking. She did this joke before.
Oh.
99% of the words that come out of my mouth are a bit, sweetheart. You know this.
Okay.
I learned this from Rich. You should know this by now.
You can't believe our lies.
A million fireflies.
How does
Who's
Wick
first?
spend the rest of his days?
Okay, actually,
There's
I
still
legit
many.
have to go to the bathroom. Can I pass it to Claw for a minute?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll come back to you.
I'm gonna pee my pants.
Who am I,
Fine.
Nikki? I gotta tell you guys what I'm doing,
Exactly.
what's going on?
Yeah,
Ooh.
honestly, that
Yeah.
seems like the ending, like send off from Nikki. That doesn't seem like that's not a D bit. That's a Nikki bit.
How is this like Nikki's arc outside of the campaign? Nikki's arc is that she's going to shit.
Yes.
Anyway, how does
Nikki's
Claw?
arc.
How does Claw spend the rest of his life?
Okay. Let's see. So. So. Once everything kind of settles into place, Hua is going to take up a job in assisting new recruits with journeys to Shadowmarch and joining the Inquisition and all that stuff for quite a while. Though I want to say partway through that tenure, it goes from just leading them there to more of a teaching position. And perhaps even tutoring. From there, maybe he can start speaking with my notes again. Start speaking with Arbrecht and maybe proposing if him and his people are willing, if they want to do any kind of trade with the mainland. Trade or travel. Though he's not really sure how many people would want to come here besides new Inquisitors. If he doesn't, if Arbrecht doesn't wish to have this, then Claw completely understands and will leave him and his people be. Maybe even try to steer new recruits away from that area unless needed, if he wants to have their peace. Maybe at some point he finds somebody within the Inquisition to share his heart with eventually. Then kind of, I would say in his later years of life, he will start wanting to travel again. Kind of going back to old places, reliving old memories. And then I'll say probably about when he's found that someone to spend his life with. At some point they would probably get a little home. They probably, you know what, they probably take over his old cabin in the mountains to settle down for a while, start a family. And in the old age, he'd probably retire back to the cabin, and maybe spend his days there, still shooting his bow, and kind of living the good wildlife.
Absolutely. And the days are kind to you. Life is peaceful.
But of course he would help out if anybody needed it. Anyone from the old crew. Maybe every once in a while do moon visits, show off the kids.
And well, Arbecht is not particularly interested in building any sort of trade relationships. You do occasionally receive a letter. About 4 of them in total, spaced out every 5 years. From your father. And whether you reply to them is your own business. He says as much, that he expects no reply, but the first one is almost a mea culpa, in which he remarks that seeing you grow so strong when he felt the social compulsion to pass you on and out was his sin, and that now he travels the world to see more, that he made sure to do a fair bit of damage to the Bane name before he divorced his wife, and not necessarily to undo what he did in his time, but to make sure he didn't have an easy out. From there on, it's just little bits of travel news. Letters talking about different cultures, different interpretations of hemocraft he finds across the world. But after about 20 years, they stopped coming all together. For one reason or another. He never says the word reconciliation, but for a hard-headed man like that, this is probably as close to reconciliation as he gets. And while the Bane name certainly doesn't have the social cash it used to, the people definitely remember that Inquisitor Claw fought in the Dead Year. Next up, we've got Rack. How do you spend the rest of your life?
Well, is Wick back?
I am back. Also, I missed like the first half of that. Does Claw have kids now? That happened?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Good for him.
Children
Alright,
named
so
Fist and Knuckle. Sorry.
I'm gonna.
I would think Tooth and Nail.
There you go.
Pretty good.
Thank you. So should I take it or should I give it back to D?
I think I've regrouped enough now that I can take a shot at this.
Yeah, fuck
I
it.
wasn't asking. Okay.
Take it away, Wick. How do you spend the rest of
Alright.
your life?
Well, as I'm sure everyone present can imagine, the life of a vigilante and the life of a diplomat is a hard balance to strike, and those responsibilities have a way of grating on one another. At the age of about 40, Wick's ongoing investigation into the whereabouts of this mysterious druid had led him to make a choice. And so he made shit. I'm having to redo my fucking notes here in real time.
Convenient.
Real time editing. Having taken little in the way of vacation time up to this point, it was a trivial matter for Wick to arrange a journey home and make his usual rounds of visiting his former comrades, sharing with them all that had happened then and since. Whether or not his plan was evident is a matter best left to their own insights. Upon returning, he filed a letter of resignation appointing his assistant, Bruiser, his successor, and then set off for the high frontier of Emercia, to the yet-to-be reconquered mountainous region, to find his final answer. Because, you see, he was forged for war, and war never changes.
I'm ragdolling in my chair.
Fucking geek.
I think the ragdoll was bad.
No, just the sheer force of it.
Oh, okay. It blew you away.
It was
Stop
very
now.
powerful.
So yeah, Wick just disappears into the hills and becomes legend.
Far off into the west, and sure enough, in the time between then and then, there are rumors that are growing of what lies beyond the west. Entire cultures in the untamed reaches of Emercia that worship gods of violence and sacrifice and torment and murder. Certainly worthy foes, as even in the wake of Wick discovering this happenstance that he is not the first to try to conquer these lands. In fact, the heroes who fought the hardest in Emercia during the Dead Year themselves wound up making a trip only to be annihilated nearly to a man, setting the stakes for yet another hero of the Dead Year to travel to the great beyond. But what happens there is uncertain. It is an untamed land, and the people there lead such different and disparate lives that to know what could happen is the unknowable. But makes for a damn good fight. Now, Vrak, it is your turn.
Right. So, there's still a lot that needs to be done. There are a number of debts that need to be repaid after the Dead War, to the Grove, to Vikrova, the Tharsis, and the Lake Cities. Some of the cities, some of these areas want integration, but don't want to give up certain aspects of themselves. Make an argument for the claiming of the West Compass, and there's a lot of politic there. So after that party conversation, there is a ceremony, sort of a renewing of vows, I guess, with him and Ogilga. There's been a weird kind of smoldering romance there for a while now, and after some things changed, it just made sense, and you're all invited to this weird sort of multicultural mashing together wedding where it's a lot of what a wedding is, with a couple dragonborn a dragonborn, like, customs thrown in that kind of throw a curveball at you.
Is it in the grove?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We got him.
But so, yeah, Brack is the adjudicator. He's amassing money for grants for the arts to try to get, various artistic endeavors off the ground, especially, Drell's opera. But even separate from that, just whoever's out there trying to make stuff, he tries to encourage it, and that necessitates that he goes and sees them, right? He can't just encourage and financially back the arts without going to an orchestra or an opera, all the stuff that he doesn't understand or really appreciate, but still has to show up to. There's an effort. There's a lot of, he tries to put a lot of emphasis into an order of druids and rangers that can go out and agricultural druids, agricultural rangers that encourage the growth of crops, that fight off against blight and help food stores, because none of this works if your people are hungry. You cannot focus on spiritual improvement on anything when your stomach is empty. So that's step one. So encouraging, trying to get a socialized, magical, agricultural group to really up crop production. That's on the table. That's going on. Education's actually been pretty okay, but it's got to continue. Non-magical education and magical education, that's out of his hands. But making sure that literacy rates are up across the board, and they're not going to invent standardized tests or anything, but they're striving to give every citizen a baseline education, give them some options, give them an understanding of the world, and especially with history. So that's, and then there's also just sort of what the actual order entails. That's all the new stuff that Vrack has taken on and taken on himself. But there's also the spiritual order itself that needs to be reformed and be spread. The order emphasizes a sense of community and personal growth. It has to balance the needs of the many with the needs of the individual and their role there. Counselors are really more like therapists than anything else, and guidance counselors more than they are priests. But they have to be present in the people's lives to be able to make that difference. And Vrack has to make sure, especially, that the order is properly reformed and that no little scraps of Bahamut are left lurking in his followers' hearts. So there's some more things have to be written, more dry theological texts need to be penned. There's one holdout dude in Pushenkt that's holding on to the old ways and is writing against him, and it's a new kind of fight he's never had before, where he has to disprove these arguments. That takes up a good bit of time. Care Hoskell expands. It becomes a small city. It has a dedicated hospital, a temple, and a theater. As Vrek's responsibilities grew, he moved a few buildings and organizations there to be a bit more convenient, but he still has to leave for his work pretty often. When he is at home, he is seeing to the best of his ability to the upbringing of his many, many children. He and Okilga, dragonborn and dwarf, not able to conceive together, but they have wound up with a very large family, first just of war orphans, of these refugees from the dead year. But, even after that, 5 years, 10 years going on, there are still children that need a home, and they're not going to turn them away. Vrek continues to be, quote, a surprisingly good dad. Though the way that things are run is a little strange, perhaps. At first, the martial training was mostly a way to teach discipline and to help vent frustration, give the children some sense of control and purpose. But there is a sense of favoritism that grows in the children. Those that do well in martial training, though it is elective, do seem to be preferred in some way to Vrek. So they're while something like gym class sort of is mandatory. Learning how to use a sword, learning how to fight and be a warrior, that's entirely optional. But they do feel a significant pressure to do so, to earn what is their father's approval, without Vrek understanding it. But even so, they are raised the best Vrek can, with his means and with his understanding. There's kids of all kinds of cultures and races, and he's applying dragonborn cultural practices to their upbringing. They are encouraged to find a hobby or a skill or something that resonates with them and to try to perfect it. Try to be the best at it, or at the very least be the best them at it that they can be. So in a phrase, Vrek inadvertently creates an orphan to adventurer pipeline that ought to be a little disconcerting from an out of character onlooker. It looks worse than it is. But yeah, for the rest of his life, Vrek juggles these two responsibilities: being a father to all these children and being a sort of father to a nation at this point, with his role as a spiritual leader and advisor to the Silesian Republic.
Absolutely. And as the years carry on, they bring with them the occasional guest, dignitaries from traveling. There is one constant, though. Every 2 years, on the anniversary of the battle for the capital, Ulahar Starhammer darkens your door and does not leave until you spar with him.
It does not take him much convincing. I forgot to include, Vrek is able to get away maybe once a year to go off on some mission to, fight a monster, to grapple the aboleth in the North Sea or what have you. But
let out his repressed dad rage.
Yeah, exactly. But it's only occasional. So Ulahar coming to spar is more than appreciated. There is a tree in sort of like in the sparring area that has engraved. It's become the scorekeeper for the years, where every yearly win they get a notch on their side, and they both very much look forward to it, even though Brat puts on a necessary air of grumbling and I don't have time.
But it is nonetheless a rich life. When it ends, as it has to, you find your consciousness parted through to the other side. But you are not there alone, waiting in the great beyond. You find your transcended consciousness, fully aware of your death, in a sea of fog and stars. And squatted in the middle distance, Kieran staring directly ahead, you see Vandigan in his mail, his lance cropped up on his shoulder. He stands, strides, and holds a hand to shake.
Rat accepts. Sir Vercarum Provokia died at age 64. A sin to Dragonborn. Asleep peacefully in his bed. A private ceremony is held for those close to him before the public is allowed at the grave.
But in the great beyond, Vandigan stares you down. A warm look for a moment. You've done a great deal in your long life, Sir Kravokiak. They, Vercarum,
I fear it was not enough. Or perhaps that it was too much.
it wasn't enough that in this moment you and I stand here as equals. Saints to the Empire, though not to the same god. Mighty forces on the world. Equals. And you see him take a couple steps back, and he drops his stance, and in that moment you feel Kosantor in that hand. We've got eternity. Want to stop being equals?
I thought you would never ask.
And so, for the rest of time compressed to an instant, you do battle with Vandigan Salaise Isildur.
Through heaven.
A send off.
Emir,
Hi.
how do you spend the rest of your life?
I didn't know I was next.
Are you not ready?
I am ready, but I thought
Okay.
it's... Oh wait, no, Cirrus rolled, but Cirrus wasn't supposed to roll. Right. There's actually this, it's really strange. There's this book that's been floating around in like some libraries around the city, some diary from some kid or something. One of the main snippets that people usually take out of it is what people know it by. But it starts off with like this first-hand account. And it goes like... It was from some kid in like one of the cities, and just a like historical diary or something like that. I remember being a kid in Seruin when one of the moons fell. There was supposed to be only one, my parents told me. There was this band of people being celebrated for being the ones that did it, which was crazy. How do you blow up a moon? But peace was around for a time, quite a long time, still peaceful now. And I remember breathing easy, because growing up under dead moon, it was a scary childhood. But my family has this house near the trees that people call the Somerset Grove. It's some cool fairy hub. I've honestly never been. The city has been getting huge lately, and all the others have been like bustling around too, all the other cities. Some fairies from the Grove have been sighted like little tourists on their best behavior. It wasn't a rare sight at all now that I think about it. But I always see this little fairy in an ornate white dress floating around, days at a time. Sometimes she's accompanied closely by a taller lady who seems to like crackle when she walks. Sometimes they held hands too, which was cute to see. People wearing large backpacks and like carefully provisioned knapsacks would approach at times, and that little fairy would always just appear almost out of nowhere. Some were allowed into the trees, some weren't and were turned away, sort of dejectedly. This always kind of perplexed me, as initially it seemed like there was a lot of talking involved about being let in, like between the fairy and whoever was there. The time between being like let in and being turned away seemed to get shorter and shorter as like the weeks and months passed. The little fairy was always coming and going too. Then she stopped appearing as often, even less so as the days passed. She was probably taking trips with a friend. That's what my mom had told me at the time. A few friends had mentioned seeing something similar in other towns. Like fairy in a white dress, tall lady, sometimes only minutes at a time between reports. But people still kept turning up to the trees, and it was still a 50-50 shot if they walked in cheerily or returned grumpily. Fairy never seen. I'm now 20 summers old. Reader's note at the time of author's note at the time of writing the diary. My friends had stopped talking about it, and whatever hubbub about the Grove had died down a little, kind of like any other town. Like, seemed just a normal place to go. But there's this story that some people talk about when my sister's kid had asked about my nana about the trees in the Grove near Seruin, Lamalios. That if you were looking for some kind of reprieve, some kind of adventure, you wanted to see new lands, or you wanted to just have some experience that you would never forget, you could approach the Somerset Grove in the mountains, and you would hear a voice that would determine if you were able to go or if you were told to leave. Well, you better book it out of there, because you weren't long for this world if you tried to go in without heeding it. And yeah. The book continues on about other like mundane stuff, but that was the passage that people always talked about.
Indeed. So Emir's life as a steward is plenty eventful, constantly being dragged across the world to explore the ruins of societies that once were. Eventually, Rulamso gets bored of Pekrova. She wants to go see more of the world. Some 60 years, no, not 60 years. Some 20 years after Heraktes left, word reached the two of you that the salt wall had begun to fall. And supposedly, it was the doing of another Pekrovan house. Not from the Mage's Isle at that even. But this infuriated Rulamso. She felt like she'd been snubbed, and the two of you were going there immediately. It's a difficult sail, but you see new worlds, new cultures. You even get to be the first person to tell Sirius that there are more of his people on the other side of the salt wall.
Fairy Paul.
Aww.
However, there is a bitterness to the sweetness. And while you have a lifespan measured in the hundreds, Orlamso does pass before you.
Keep in mind that while you're recounting this, there's a gun to your head. So if you want to like read, what is it, retcon anything like that, then I'll give you the extended draft later.
She
But,
lives
yeah,
she lives a long life.
the safety's off.
For someone as active and as tied to the chaos of raw magic, to reach 90 is a feat.
Safety's on.
But nonetheless, you explored the world together. You got to reunite Sirius with his own people. It's a good life. Nobody can take that away from you.
It is. Thank you.
Chipper.
Hello.
Probably the second longest documented life of anyone in this party, since Wick disappears to fight everything to the west.
All the time. Everywhere, all the time, all at once. My student, my pupil, Benny, she's gonna live. I'm actually gonna outlive her, aren't I? Even though she's younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. For a while, she'll stay as Hedonomancer, and she'll teach Benny in the way that, you know, Jared Orlen taught her, and have them succeed her position. And they would take their students, and she would help guide, you know, her grand students, as many as they are. But after her initial tenure, she'd never go back to being Hedonomancer again. Instead, she spends the majority of the rest of her life just being basically an elusive author. Sometimes guest lecturer back at the colleges. A lot of the time she returns to the museum. Almost every 10-20 years she'll go back once. Which I'm sure is not a very long time for the Fae, but, you know, for everybody else. She's a frequent visitor. And she never ever stops looking for something new. Always. And she's the only one who... Actually, that's not true, because Wick never settled down either. But one of the few who kind of never settled down with anybody. And she just... An insatiable desire to keep moving forward.
He's on that femcell grind.
Yeah, well... an out-of-character moment. The reason is because she's still very child-coded, and I don't want any fucking ickiness ever with Chipper. She's too precious. So, yes, she's on that Sigma female grind set until she dies. But she doesn't go quietly or peacefully, because she has always felt that there's never an end to the new things that can be learned or discovered in this world, and she actively tries to prolong her life as long as she can.
Absolutely.
And she's everybody's kind of strange and bizarre auntie to all of Rack's adopted children. They know her as, you know, a different name all the time, but always just Auntie. And to everybody else.
You definitely get a couple of them to be like, so necromancy's not that bad, huh?
Yeah, exactly. If I don't win with
At
you,
least
I'm gonna win with your children.
Hey, kiddo, it's okay. I know your goldfish just died, but what if?
But what if your goldfish could be there forever? But it's
Oh no.
But she's everybody's, eccentric. Auntie initially, and then grandma eventually, and then everybody's, great grandma eventually. Until there's either no more life to live, or she finds a way to forever, and that's it for her.
And you do lead a life of discovery. Far from Veldalg, there are books and magic courses across the world with your names printed on them. And the legacy you leave behind is immeasurable as well. Your student once went by Genhuli, now similarly by a myriad of names. Takes to learning quickly. She's already mastered the common tongue before the dead year is even up. And her appetite for learning magic gives you pause a few times. There are moments where you stop and wonder if this is what Gerald saw when you were talking to him. But she grows into a fine wizard. And by the time she's in her 30s, she's ready to take up the position. And her legacy carries part of yours. Because under her stewardship as High Onomancer, the first courses in positive necromancy are taught.
Yes!
Not the necromancy of raising the dead, but necromancy to the tune of dispelling the undead or drawing wisdom from the dead, appropriating things that people once knew in positive lights, ways to use necromancy to venerate the dead. Not quite as lich-coded, maybe, as you might have been hoping, but...
Hey, look, this is the best I could ask for. This is kind of what I was hoping for. It's just that, this is what I want for society.
You had to shoot for the stars.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
Reminder.
Wizards are a thing.
Yeah.
Reminder, bullying works.
Yes, reminder, manipulating multiple generations of the same family until they say yes is the way forward.
You are also unable to shake her. You travel to the far corners of the world, seeking knowledge and constantly forgetting to leave notice, but no matter what, every so often she'll find you, teleporting into the hovel you're staying at to complain about a man or partner that she had, the foibles of, frankly, someone who had a kind of arrested development.
Yeah.
Rapidly catching up and entering the spotlight herself, but the two of you keep a common friendship through the rest of her life, which is much shorter than your own. But you definitely feel sources of pride in her accomplishments, which, granted, she doesn't take down a moon or anything, but goes from 0 to something. Similarly, you keep up with Gerald from time to time, as your travels occasionally interlock with his own, though he was much older as an elf, and he also does pass before you. And though many of those wizards closest to you are gone. It's not like you're ever truly alone. After all, Cirrus is going to be here forever.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, how does Cirrus spend the rest of time?
Well, so, as the years go on, and his friends begin to pass through the great beyond, Sirius will dedicate a mural to them in the halls of the museum. He continues his work in helping lost pilgrims find their way again, and in trying to find a solution, a balance between the Grove and the mortal realm. At one point, he consults the stars themselves, and with their help, recovers the lost history and culture of his people. And when Emer tells Cirrus that about the descendants on the other side of the Salt Wall, Cirrus reaches out to them and begins to build connections again with them. And at some point, when trust is built between them, he will invite them to live permanently in the museum. He would help his people grow and thrive again, and teach them all the magics and knowledge that he's accumulated in his never-ending quest to continue to improve the museum's vast libraries and curriculum. And on occasion, when he sees a very talented, promising young Lakama, he will take them under his wing and teach them the secrets of the cosmos. And probably one day, maybe hundreds of years in the future, one of those apprentices will come to him and ask to be allowed to travel an adventure and seeking knowledge and whatever magic artifacts that they might want to find. And Cirrus will grant them that passage and bestow upon them a drop of his power. And he continues living and building friendships and watching as they fade away. But every now and then, he will go and visit. He will knock occasionally on the metaphorical door of the Oberon, and have like a little tea party, a little like get together. It's kind of required. Sirius will not accept no for an answer. But every now and then, Sirius will maybe I'd say like every decade or so, Sirius will take his avatar outside the grove and sit in the tall billowing grasses outside of it. He will gaze out to the astral sea in the night sky and remember that though the friends who started this journey with him and who helped him free himself from the shackles that he was stuck in, though those friends are gone, they all still gaze at the same stars.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, let's check in on some other friends. let's start back at the very beginning. The boys. Gup, Mup, and Tup. They continue their duties as retainers for quite a while, but eventually they do reach a point of retirement.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Frack, what are the boys' 401ks?
None of us know what that is. No one involved in that question understands what that is.
Don't worry then.
But the boys find a second life in their retirement, as a musical sensation has taken hold of the far-flung city of Sarowin. The boys get their second life as Sarowin's foremost jazz trio.
Oh, when I said
Fuck
that
yeah.
Brack encouraged the arts, you didn't think that he made an entire nation sit at his kid's music recital?
Hell yeah. Let's go.
But speaking of Sarowin, Sarowin as a city has changed a lot from the last time anyone was there. During the Dead Year, there was a coming out of a population that lived on the fringes in the sewers of Sarowin. A group of Sahagin people and various other aquatic beast folk that rose up seemingly from nowhere to defend the walls of the city with their lives. Revealed thereafter to have been a private security in the city itself for quite a long time. A people that had been protecting everyone from the shadows. After the Dead Year, they no longer need to hide. And Sarowin becomes a prosperous multicultural city, leading to this rise of jazz. But aside from these Sahagin, there is another defender of the city, whose stature grows to a legend, despite he himself only being about 3 feet tall. And that is the pygmy bugbear Whitmore.
Let's fucking go!
Whitmore defends the city as valiantly as he can, and his foundry very nearly burns to the ground as he rapidly manufactures weapons and ammunition to arm the guards. Though a prickly sort, and he remains a prickly sort for the rest of his life, without Whitmore's talent for munition craft and manufacturing as a whole, Sarowin would have definitely fallen to the undead. And in the aftermath, he finds himself in charge of a great number of public works projects. In fact, when Sarowin raises its first skyport, it is called Port Whitmore. Vesh continues to sail. He gets married. He doesn't do it in the Feywild because he's not sure about that, but he gets married. Everyone is invited, of course. And he continues to sail to far-off continents with his wife and the crew of their ship. When the salt wall falls, Vesh is one of the first sailors to snag a contract to explore trade options in the newly rediscovered land of Kargenwald. He prospers, but with a human lifespan, he's not bound for the world forever. Neither is Kor, who spends the rest of her years tending to the lands of the Holminster Barony. People from all up and down the eastern seaboard come to the castle here in the Baronies as it comes to have one of the most abundant gardens in the continent, constantly tended by just a single cleric and her occasional followers. Only a few people know about what goes on in the Only few people know about what goes on in the Undercroft, where Kor has started a new sort of order, a clerical order. Known as the Ravens of Rena, Kor has gathered and continues a kind of unknown counter-mission to everything Chipper has been trying to do. The Ravens of Rena travel across the world, slaughtering the undead. There are any number of attempted Lich ascensions that are thwarted by Kor and her people. But you'd never know it from looking at those beautiful gardens. Speaking of undead, Bahalzul disappears from the face of the world following the dead year, making good on his promise that he just wants to live a normal life. That is, until Candlewick encounters him in the western reaches of Emercia,
Oh, shit.
doing his own exploration. He doesn't intend to do too much fighting, but he would certainly be glad to offer his services for some free travel on an airship. While he remembers much of his time as Normand Hargrave, and sometimes the mannerisms slip through, he becomes his own person, and it's almost impossible, or it's easy to forget, that at some point this man helped Shrade burn Meliaris to the ground. He doesn't die, necessarily, but he does disappear again after some time, and who knows where he's off to next. Another person who does not die is Arbecht. He finds himself continuing to fight in Shadow March with demons who think they're big enough to take him, and remains undefeated. He's happy to host you, Claw, every time you come, and even knowing that he will outlive you, he still treats you like a kid every time, even when you start to really show your age.
Where?
But that's what he's doing. Another face that crops up mysteriously, though, Sirius, you don't know what to make of it. Eventually, the Archfey of the Spring Court passes on, shimmering away into the ether. Though, rather than creating chaos and tumult, another, seemingly successor, rises directly from his court. A small gnomish man who calls himself Gibbs. In Waylandshard, Duke continues to do his thing. He is happy to have continued trade across the ocean between Mercia and Veldalg, and his life is less remarkable. He's already lived most of it through the Dragonfell War, and he passes unremarkably, though he does make sure that when he goes, because it is before Wick leaves for the west, he makes sure that Wick gets his gun. Just as a little memento. The capital city of Soleil Isildur is its own entity that sees growth, nearly tripling in size in the 100 years after the Dead Year. it becomes a beacon, not of the martial superiority of the Soleil's empire that it had been for so long, but of the unity of peoples on Veldalg. It is a hub of trade, it is a hub of culture, it is everything that you all collectively set out to make it in the aftermath of everything that has been. It is a beautiful city that only grows and becomes more resplendent as time goes on. It is the symbol of your victory, not only over Atropus, but over all that came before. It truly becomes a city on a hill. Which brings us to the last person we have to demarcate the story of, that of Heraktes. Cirrus, your story becomes very tied with Heraktes over time for obvious reasons. The first 20 or so years of Heraktes' travel are pretty unremarkable. Occasionally, some strange parcel from another land will show up on the Temple at the Moon, and whoever happens to find themselves there to reminisce gets to enjoy little parcels, strange meals from other places. Occasionally, Heraktes comes back to talk about the myriad strange alien worlds, the differing cultures, the differing biomes. He finds a few worlds where there is just a great ocean and the land masses are either floating or are weaving spider webs of raised, interwoven stone that wrap around it. But as he continues further out into the great unknown, the time between his returns takes longer and longer. Each time he returns, he has fewer friends to return to. Over the hundreds and thousands of years that Heraktes has gone, so much changes on Herat. Cultures rise, fall, wars are had and resolved. By the time of his last returning, there isn't even a salt well anymore, and the land of Kargenwald is fully rejoined, a stone's throw from the coast. But there is a last time he returns. A point at which the only person he has to share his stories with is you, Cirrus. And there is a profound dejection as you kind of read the tone of his words that he's been so far out and hasn't even found traces of his people. A resignation. In confidence, he tells you that he's had an amazing journey, that he's seen things that nobody else will see, and that he's glad he had someone to talk to about it. And as the two of you look over the mausoleum, Veldalg beyond it, Herat beyond that, he leaves you a simple trinket. A scale plucked from his hide of emerald glass. He gives you a hug and is gone. But the stretch of time is innumerable. And And there are more stories to tell. And this is the end of the story of the Vault of the Glass Dragon. I want to thank you all. Not you watching, I want to thank you all for playing it with me for these 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It has been a hell of a ride. Could not have done it without you guys.
Yay! Claps all around.
I am serious given form.
I might.
No, thank you.
I
for
might also
everything, Matt.
cry.
You-
Thank
Yeah,
you, Matt.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Thank you, Matt.
Oh.
You guys want to do it all over again?
Yeah.
Let's fucking go.
Go again. Let's do it again.
I love the best.
Oh no.
But I guess I also want to thank everyone who has been tuning in with the streams. We've had a couple new viewers here and there. It's not just Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
We love you, Sandy.
It was so fun putting
Thanks
you down,
for sending
Sandy.
us your energy, Sandy.
But we will be back with a brand new campaign, a brand new part of the world, and a brand new system in Pathfinder 2nd Edition in about a month.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Until then,
Let's go.
thank you all for being a part of this adventure. As I go, I wanna indulge myself with a little monologue. You know, I'm gonna quote Brandon Lee Mulligan here, and he said that we tell stories to make sense of the world, and I think we have made sense of the world. If there's any moral that you guys need to take away as viewers or participants, it's that the president is controlled by dream aliens. And the only way to excise him is through an axe.
Or just meteor him with the
I was
undead.
actually starting to get emotional for like part
So
of
was I.
that,
That's why I had to do this.
and then you killed it.
Oh, no.
Killed it good.
He does visit Pennsylvania a lot.
Yeah, true.
Wait, shit! I just realized we forgot something.
What did we
What?
forget?
What?
What happened to Air Shack?
Oh yeah, fuck.
The novels.
I knew I forgot somebody on my list. So the final and the most important person to catch up with
Yeah.
is Airshack.
Or no boy.
Yeah.
In the age after the dead year, Airshack travels Veldalg. He leaves the Druid's Grove behind, and he seeks out his people. And it is a dangerous effort, but about 60 years after the dead year, there are rumors that somewhere in the Clysarian steppes there is a village of peaceful gnolls.
Aww. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
The hyenas finally overcame their mescaline addiction.
God damn it.
That is it for this story. The world is saved not by any individual heroes, but by a family forged in fire and steel, in ash and blight, in life and death. And nobody can take that away from them. Thank you all for coming out. And until next time, have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
You are trespassing on federal property. Please leave now. You will not be warned again.
mi sono alzato. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Stamattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invasor. Partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morir. Partigiano!